Hello and happy
Hey,
Friday. Cheers,
yeah,
everybody.
I'll drink to that. Chin
Welcome
chin.
to the back catalog listening party, your weekly happy hour. I am Anthony Ihrig. My co host, Ellen Stanley, is off this week on a well deserved family vacation, but she
Yeah.
did record a little video for our Patreon patrons, though. Stick around to the end of the episode and you can hear from Ellen. But without further ado, let me introduce our guest this week, the multi-talented, multi-instrumentalist, multilingual maestro himself, Mr. Mark Kreitzer. Hey, Mark, how you
Uh,
doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Oh, I am fantastic now that it's 4 o'clock on Friday. I
I'm
feel like
so happy to be here.
oh
This is
man,
great.
it's so good to have a chance to catch up with you. It's been too
Yeah.
long, and especially over a beer, which is
Yeah.
always one of my favorite ways to catch up with you in particular. So, cheers to you.
Cheers.
For those of you out there having a beverage along, I'm going to Michigan to the Founders Brewery, and this is our all day IPA. How about you, Mark? What are you drinking today?
I'm going to Northfield,
All right,
Northfield,
Northfield.
Minnesota, Eminent Brewery. I'm drinking some black lager.
Nice.
It is. I don't like lagers, and this is one of my new favorite beers. So
Well, that's saying a lot. So
do yourselves a favor. Drive on down.
All right, and we got Alan checking in. Hey, Alan. Yes, let's
Hey.
do it. And Chris, hey, hey. It's so
Hey.
good to have all of you here with us. This is how I know what day of the week it is. If it wasn't for this show. So for those of you who are maybe in the Twin Cities area where we're broadcasting from, I'm in South Minneapolis. Mark is in South Minneapolis. Mark is well known. He's a household name for reasons both good and no, for great reasons. He is really my definition of a working musician. But for those of you out there who haven't heard Mark, would you mind just talking a little bit about your history with music and where the album we're going to talk about today kind of fits in on that timeline?
Yeah. So my parents were both music teachers, and we all got to take piano lessons. I found out recently my kids and grandkids were reading my baby book, and turns out I started piano lessons in kindergarten.
Oh, wow.
And then, yeah. So I kind of, I played a little bit, and then I thought I was going to be a pro baseball player, and didn't pay much attention to music till the Beatles. And that changed everything. So my older brothers both had guitars and banjos and stuff. So I would sneak their guitars and teach myself to play a little bit. And way back high school, I used to play a lot of blues and rock and roll, electric stuff. And then I hooked up with some guys, Tom Peterson and Dave Everest and Tony Krogh, and we had a little band in South Dakota called the Rocky Mountain Oysters.
Oh,
Charlie Smith, yeah. And the name came from the first gig the band was going to play. They were getting hired at a bar out in the mall to play for Rocky Mountain Oyster Night. And they said, well, what's Rocky Mountain Oysters? And that's what our band is called. So this is way pre Tom, before he joined the band.
oh, wow. Yes. Look at that, young Mark and the Oysters.
Yeah,
And talk a little bit about the style of music you were playing with this band.
well, this is one of the things that really broke my musical mind wide open, because on the left is Dave Wood, a fantastic electric blues player primarily.
Okay.
Tony's next to him, who is an unbelievable singer. Also started off singing rock and roll. He was in a band called the Vandals.
Oh, I've actually heard of the Vandals.
Yeah.
Didn't they have a little anarchy symbol in the name?
Something.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
maybe.
goodness. Oh, wow. Bringing me back. All right.
And then he got way into kind of folk music and started playing auto harp and banjo. Dave, next to him, rest in peace, Dave, was a great guitar player. He had big ears too and listened to all kinds of stuff. He's the first person I was listening to a record with, and I said, "What's that chord?" He goes, "It's C major 7, duh. He's like, what's that? And then next to him is my best man at our wedding, Tom Peterson, who is one of my favorite songwriters of all time, just a fabulous writer, who also listened to everything. And then I kind of was sneaking into the acoustic world through like James Taylor and, Carole King. And then the 5 of us got together, and it was like anything anybody brought was fair game. So that was a huge gas, and we played square dances, and
Well,
then go ahead.
one of the questions I had too, just I knew that you had this rock and roll background. Is this band where the kind of bluegrass influences showed up? When did that
Little bit,
enter
yeah.
your life?
That's when I was first introduced. Tom, actually, we were best buds in high school. And he had me over one time to his house. We were just hanging out, and he put on a Bill Monroe record. I thought, that's the worst garbage I've heard in my life.
Oh my goodness.
And it took me a while to get, it was just everything about it. It was so frenetic, and he, sounded like he was screaming to me when he was singing. And luckily I learned that that's what makes it so cool. But we did hardly any bluegrass at that time. We were doing more old-timey stuff. In fact, I've been accused by people in the Twin Cities of actually being an old-timey musician. And I am happy I will accept that. I love old-timey too. Soon after that, a friend, Jim Carrier, moved to town. He was sent there by AP, great banjo player, and he was looking for anybody who could play banjo or bluegrass. So Tony and I joined him and one other guy, and I really got schooled on bluegrass with Jim.
Right on.
After that, we moved to Madison, Wisconsin. I got a job there working in the music department, tuning pianos, which is one of my other lifetimes.
Like I said, multi-talented.
Yeah, and I primarily played bluegrass there. I played almost nothing but bluegrass for about 20 years, 25 years.
Oh, wow.
One of the people that I met up with through bluegrass was Sims Delaney Potoff, who has a band called Harmonious Whale. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really started getting schooled on playing some real traditional jazz stuff. And I played with them one summer, and we had a bluegrass band after that that called the Northern Shovelers. And,
okay.
And really, I was afoot in lots of camps then, and started writing. That's when I really started. I started writing in junior high, but I would not admit to any of those songs for many reasons.
Junior high students.
So I got to Madison, and started thinking about Tom, who wrote all these great songs. We had written a couple too, and I thought I could write songs. So one of the first I am conscious of writing was "Put the Baby Down." Oh, okay. Which I still play. In fact, I played it last night for people out front. And the songwriting has just kind of been a thing since then. And after we moved to Minneapolis, I actually started playing. My first gig in the Twin Cities was a call from the Middle Spunk Creek Boys. To sit in for Barry on banjo. He, at the time, was traveling salesman up in North Dakota and Montana and parts beyond. And so I played a gig on banjo, and Alan called me up and said, "You want to join the band?" I said, I just got to town. I'd like to see kind of what's out there. I never officially joined a band and played for 12 and a half years. 3 recordings.
That's how it goes with bands like this. And what year was that?
Oh man, that's 96 maybe.
Okay,
something like that.
Well, that's a great segue, I think, into the first track that you have lined up, because as many of us know, songwriting is really one of your strong suits, and you're really a chameleon when it comes to different genres. But I think you write a really great bluegrass tune, and the first song that you have picked out for us today has that just traditional bluegrass flavor. Do you want to talk a little bit about this one?
I'm assuming it's the radio, right? Yeah.
You got it.
So, yeah, this is a song. One of the things that I did for a while, I want to get back to it. In fact, maybe next week, was I would do songwriting days, and I would block off 12 hours. And in 12 hours, I write 20 songs.
Oh, wow.
And I was driving to my brother's place up north, brother and sister-in-law's, to hide out for a day. And on the drive up, it was late at night, all by myself, and the moon, and so it kind of wrote itself once I got my guitar the next day. But it's basically about, being on the road and wishing you weren't, and hoping the one back home is thinking about you too.
Yeah, there's a strong tradition in bluegrass of that theme. Well, this is Mark Kreitzer's take on the bluegrass songwriting. This is called Radio. Oh, one more thing. Did you
pay attention to the banjo kickoff?
Oh, all right. Maybe there should be a disclaimer that I recorded with Mark on this record. Here's Mark Kreitzer, Radio in the Pale Moonlight on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
First light of dawn. I'm weary now, but it won't be long till I'm at home with you. Of your hand, baby, do you feel it too? Each town I pass, I wish was my own. I'm tired of traveling alone. I'm weary now, but it won't be long till I'm at home with you. I wish was my own. I'm tired of traveling alone. On this lonesome road, there's no turning back. I'm coming home to you.
Woo!
Man.
That's Mark Kreitzer with Radio in the Pale Moonlight on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Now that's some bluegrass music right there.
I tell you, you know what? When we were first getting together as a band, you guys would all leave rehearsal, and I'd just walk around like this for hours. That's the most fun. What a great band, man.
Well, that's a good segue. Why don't you tell everybody who was on the record and how this band kind of got its start?
Yeah, so I'm playing guitar and singing.
Okay.
My brother Chuck plays bass. He does some tenor singing. You, of course, are on there playing some banjo and dobro and guitar as well. Yeah. And Tom Schaefer's playing fiddle. And then Jed Germond is playing mandolin and pedal steel. A lot of people don't know about his pedal steel skills, but
man.
Boy.
I was re-listening to this record in prep for today, and yeah, man, he's just an amazing pedal steel player and fiddler and mandolin player.
Yeah. So anyway, how it came together was I wanted going back to the Oysters, one of the records that I was exposed to was what's his name? David Bromberg.
Oh yeah.
A live album, and they'd start playing a song, and all of a sudden the whole rhythm section would drop out but a fiddle, and then there'd be 3 fiddle players playing some Celtic thing, and then they'd start playing this thing, and all of a sudden there'd be horn players, and they'd be playing some blues thing, and I wanted to do that. So I thought, who can I ask that would play with me, who could do all that stuff? And it was pretty, there aren't a ton of people that play all those genres really convincingly. So I was really, really lucky.
Well, we were lucky too. What a fun group that configuration was, and I was honored to be a part of it. Well, for those of you who are just tuning in, this is the back catalog listening part of your weekly happy hour. Today we're talking with Mark Kreitzer, and I just want to shout out to all the people that are here joining us. What a great group. We got Chris and Ann and Mark and Bruce and Natasha. We got Molly and Penny and Bevan and Connie. Thank you all so much for chiming in. Like we say every week, this is really a conversation. It's really about us getting together. So if you have questions for Mark, comments for Mark, Alan says, it must be Black Lager Day. This is the kind of thing. This is the kind of thing we want to do. We want to connect with you over beer and fashion as well. I see. Where is that? Okay, we got a question from Bruce here. Mark, where did you get your shirt? Now, that's a great example of the kind of hard-hitting information we want from our guests. And I mean this because I had the same question. Mark, where did you get that shirt?
Oh, that's fake news. That's fake news. This is from Martin Guitar. Actually, John Guerin, my good friend, all our good friends, had a guitar store for a number of years called My Favorite Guitars, and he sent it to me one day. It's a whole bunch of ukuleles, if you can see.
All right. Right on.
And it actually fits me these days. It used to be a little tighter.
Well, if that's okay right now. I think all bets are off here during quarantine. Hey, look, our friend Gary's here. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Great to see you. And Vaughn, thanks for stopping by. And something that you mentioned, before we kind of got into this was this idea of songwriting retreats and this idea of writing 20 songs in a certain period of time. That kind of thing. I think a lot of people think about songwriting as, just when inspiration strikes. But in reality, like any hard work, you wake up and you do it every day. There's a quote, I forget who it was, but they said, someone asked, it was an author, maybe Stephen King or something. They said, do you write only when you're inspired? And he's like, yeah, that's true. But I just happen to be inspired every day at 8 a.m. And you are that type of songwriter, just always kind of doing it. For those of you who don't know, you also teach songwriting. I know you taught a class at some local high schools. Can you talk a little bit about when you kind of went from kind of getting into songwriting into kind of a professional songwriting mindset? When did that happen? And I don't know, for all the aspiring songwriters out there, what advice would you give them?
Those are great questions. How it happened was really just accidental. I was writing songs and playing in a band, and we needed material. And, one thing that sets a band apart is if you can do your own songs. So I thought, well, I've got some decent songs. I'm going to play them for the band. And if they like them, we'll play them. And so the more I did it, the more it was like, well, I've got all these songs. And especially when I got to play with the Spunks, I think we did 3 records with original stuff on. And it was just, that's one of the things that made us the Spunks, was we were doing original songs, and Bruce was writing at the time too. And for people just getting into it, write. You got to write a whole bunch of stuff to know what you like to write. what I would do is there's a great songwriter who just died, Michael Smith from Chicago. I got to sit in on a songwriting workshop that he did at the Homestead Pick and Parlor in town. And he said some great things. One of them was think like a songwriter. So if you ever go out for coffee again after the COVID and you're sitting in a coffee shop and somebody says something interesting or funny or moving or touching, write it down, put it on your phone, make a voice memo of it, and just build up a whole bunch of great lines. And then after that, it's Tim O'Brien's advice. He said, writing a song is like doing a jigsaw puzzle. You got to get the frame and then the hard work starts. And I think that's the idea of writing a song is you get a hook or you get a line or you get a melody or a chord progression or whatever it is. And then it's just put your nose to the grindstone and get at it.
Right on, right on. Well, thanks for that advice. And speaking of songwriters, one of my favorites, and yours I know too, Becky.
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
Becky.
Hey,
Great
Becky.
to have you here with us, who you have worked with as well. We'll talk
sure
about
have.
this. There's just a few degrees of separation between Mark and just about every guest we've had on this. And that's what happens when you play in so many bands, in so many genres.
And many instruments. I think that has opened a lot of doors for me too.
It's funny you mention that because I was thinking about this interview, and when I think about you, I can't help but think of your room of instruments and how like your instruments are really like more family members. I remember maybe talking to you about your kids once, and you might have referred to your LaPlante family of instruments as some extended family. How many instruments do you play? That's one thing I want to know.
I keep trying to count them. I think around a dozen. So, wow. Do you want me to try and list them?
Yeah, I'm sure everybody'd be interested in all that.
Guitar, banjo, tenor guitar, bass, mandolin, mandola, mandocello, fiddle. What am I forgetting? Piano, accordion.
Oh dear!
I started working on drums. Don't tell anybody.
Oh no! Oh dear!
Did I say dobro?
I don't know if you did, but I've lost track. The thing is about
13.
Mark, when I first met Mark, it was at the Minnesota Bluegrass and Old Time Music Association's one of their festivals. It might not have been the first time we met, but it's the first time I was really aware of you. And what it was is I was walking down the hallway, and I just saw this outline of what I thought was 4 musicians, because I saw about 3 different, stringed instrument necks, a fiddle case, a mando case, and all of this stuff walking. And I just saw the shadow, and then when it emerged, I realized it was one man carrying all of those instruments. And I remember thinking, my God, I want to be like that. And I'm still working on catching up all those instruments, but. Not only do you play a lot of instruments, but you play a lot of fine instruments. And for those of us in Minnesota, we're really lucky to know some amazing luthiers.
Absolutely.
And you have one particular favorite luthier, I would be venturing to say, here in Minnesota. And you have quite a collection from him. Do you want to talk a little bit about your LaPlante family collection?
I do indeed. Lloyd LaPlante is like the uncle I didn't have. And I love his family. We are one of those families that are able to disagree on political ideas, but still have fun together and talk and be nice. And I first learned about Lloyd when I was playing with a band called the Wisconsin River Bluegrass Boys back in Madison. And Art Leese, who played mandolin and a little bit of guitar in the band, had both a guitar and a mandolin from Lloyd. And so I just fell in love with it, his mandolin especially. And I would run into Lloyd at festivals. In fact, I opened the back of the van one time and my fiddle fell out and the sound post fell over.
Oh, no.
Like, you can't play.
What a nightmare.
I know. So Art says, let's go find Lloyd. and knocked on his door. He said, "Yeah, I'll give it to me." And like 5 minutes later, I had my fiddle back. So that was my introduction to Lloyd. Wouldn't let me pay him for it. So he lives on Lake Pekegama, just outside of Grand Rapids. And my brother and sister-in-law have a place also up there where I went up to write. And so the first mandolin, we went over to his house. I was actually, I was asked to go up and look for something for a friend of mine. So we went over, and Lloyd had a mandolin, and yeah, that's nice. Do you have anything else? Well, yeah, I played a little bit more. Do you have any others? Well, yeah. By the time it was done, there were 7 brand new mandolins on the sofa. I said, well, these are great. Is this really everything? Well, somebody brought in one back on trade, and I don't know. Well, I'd love to play that. And it's the one on the right, the F5 mandolin. And I played 2 chords and I said, I got to have it. And, Lloyd, I don't know if he still does it, but he's like, well, why don't you take it and see if it works for you? And, if you like it, you can send me a little money now and then. So from there, I've actually had, I bought a couple violins from him and a bow, and I had a different dreadnought guitar that I sold back. So yeah, I got a mandolin quartet, F5 and F4, a mandola and a mandocello.
Those are those big mandolins you can see there.
Yeah.
They look like giant mandolins, and they all sound fantastic, folks.
Yeah.
These instruments are all just world class. So much tone coming out of these things.
Yeah. And then the one in the middle in the back is a J45 copy, a Gibson copy, and same thing. I played 2 chords. I said I got to have this.
It's a disease, isn't it, Mark?
Yeah.
What do they call it? Guitar acquisition syndrome.
Yeah, you got gas, man. Guitar acquisition syndrome.
Well, one of the things that I love about you as a musician is you have these folk roots, and not just in the music that you listen to and that was influenced by you, but your dedication to things like local instruments and local song topics, right? You're not necessarily writing about your time, down in the coal mines or something like that.
Right.
And the next song that you picked out for this has that tie-in, both to a place in Minnesota and a person in Minnesota. The name of the song is Duluth. Would you like to speak a little bit about this tune and where it came from?
I would, yeah. When I was writing this song, the time I was writing this, I was driving back and forth a lot to Duluth, playing a lot actually with a great young guitarist who's not as young anymore, but in a group called Clearwater Hot Club, Sam and Matthew Miltich.
Which you guys may, for those who are regular listeners or watchers, I guess, to the show, you would know that Sam was a guest on episode number 17.
Yeah.
And there he is.
So that was a long time ago. So we were driving up and back and forth playing up there, and one of my trips, I don't remember if it was with them or it might have been with the Spunks, we got to have some dinner with the Fish Heads, actually, with Kim and Mike, and we were swapping songs. There she is. There they are. Yeah. And just sitting in their living room, we had some dinner, and she was playing some of her songs. I played a couple. And she played one song that, honest to God, brought tears to my eyes. And that doesn't happen with me a lot. And she doesn't even remember the song. She doesn't remember the episode at all, but it really impressed me. And so on these drives back and forth, I started thinking about, writing songs, and why do we do it? We don't need songs. There are plenty of good ones, but we can't not write songs. If you're a songwriter, you have to write songs.
That's what you do.
And so the whole, all of those thoughts kind of combined into this song, which is nominally about Kim, but as much as anything, it's about writing songs and not being able to not write songs.
Awesome. Well, folks, this is one of my all-time favorite Mark Kreitzer tunes. This is Duluth from Mark Kreitzer on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
I know this woman up in Duluth. When she sings, she makes the angels sigh. She's been known to make a grown man cry. And boys, I've got the proof. She'll take you higher than the Eiffel Tower and show you things you've only heard about. She can turn your whole world inside out before she gets you in her power. And all the women seem to know it, though they'll never really show it. And all the boys think they can win her heart, just as sure as there's a moon and stars. Bears her heart in the wooden strings. She feels her soul in every song she sings, so everybody feels her pain. She could no more give up the song any more than the sun at rise. And everybody saw it in her eyes, and everybody knew it from the start. So if you go to hear that woman play, don't be quick to give your heart away. But you know every word she has to say, you can take for gospel truth from that woman in Duluth.
Oh, yeah, that's Mark Kreitzer in Duluth.
Hey, if I could real quick, we were talking, I don't want to only say that I have LaPlants, because I have some other instruments from local builders too. In fact, Jed, who played mandolin and steel on that, built my bluegrass guitar, which you're hearing on this. And I have a fiddle that was designed by, help me.
Oh, I can't help you, Mark.
Maybe
somebody. Oh yeah,
Gary Bartik.
Gary Bartik. I wasn't sure
Wow.
which. You have so many, so I wasn't.
And Matt Wheeling. I have Matt Wheeling bow too. So I'm very, very blessed
to have all of those instruments. Now the sound of this record, it's got that kind of band in the room sound, but I was there. So I know that we had our own spaces, but there really is something magical about the room that we recorded this in, a little place called Wild Sound Studios in Minneapolis. Do you want to talk a little bit about the experience of recording the record?
Yeah, Matthew Zimmerman was our engineer, and it was spectacular. We'd do a cut. And Matt would say, "You want to come in and listen?" And we come in, and he'd be mixing it already. And it's like, "Oh, that one note's a little flat. This one, is that better?"
Yeah.
And the sounds that he got, especially like the electric. I don't know if we have anything electric on this picked out today, but I had a couple electric guitars plugged in, and he had like a room of the most amazing amps in the basement. And he would run down through the basement, record it live up there. It was great. So
I
There
got a
was
picture of here with a electric here.
oh, look at there. Yeah, so I was isolated. You were isolated. I think Chuck and Tom maybe were in the same room.
Yeah. Nope. Tom was. I think. Oh, maybe no. Tom was in the big room. I think.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay. And then Jed. Where was Jed?
I think Jed was in the drum room. So here's Jed on the pedal steel.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, one night Jed wanted to redo something, so he just sat in the control room and plugged right into the board.
Speaking of the control room, here's the control room, and here's it's kind of a bad picture. I apologize, but here's Matthew.
There he
Zimmerman,
is. Hey, Matthew.
one of the finest engineers and producers
Absolutely.
anywhere.
I still get to work with him, by the way. He now does a lot of work at Carleton College for all of our concerts and recitals.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I've kept that up with him.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
for those of you just tuning in, this is the back catalog listening part of your weekly musical happy hour, and I want to say hello to everybody. Yes, cheers once again.
Cheers.
Mark. Oh, thank you, Mark. Mark says, greetings to my two favorite banjo teachers. Thanks, Mark. Good to see you there.
Yeah.
And it looks like maybe a neighbor of yours is here.
Yeah, he's a Northfield neighbor.
All right,
Thank you.
Northfield
Hey,
neighbor.
Steven.
And that's what this is all about, folks. This at this time in the world, having a place to gather, even if it's just for an hour a week, it means so much to us. So thank you so much for being here and for tuning in. And you are listening to Mark Kreitzer, a Minneapolis-based songwriter, multi-instrumentalist. And we're talking about his 2011 release, the self-titled Mark Kreitzer Band album. And we've listened to a couple of tracks already. And the next one we have queued up, you actually kind of hinted towards this when you said that some people accuse you of being an old-time musician. And for those of you who don't know, the average person would hear bluegrass, they'd hear what we call old-time, they'd hear, heck, just rock and roll with a banjo in it, and they'd think it's all it's all bluegrass, right? I mean, it's kind of a joke. But like if you get really deep into it, kind of like maybe any subgenre of a music, there are pretty distinct lines. Can you maybe enlighten folks to this difference between what some might call bluegrass and some might call old time music?
Yeah. So to me, the biggest difference is old time is primarily intended for dancing. So the main focus is you get just a groove going, and you want a groove big enough you could drive a bus through it. You just get this thing hammering, and so the dancers don't have to think; they just follow.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in the band that plays melody instruments, so mandolin or fiddle or potentially guitar, depending on
clawhammer, banjo, maybe.
Clawhammer, banjo, thank you. They all play the melody through the whole tune. And there are vocal numbers, it's true, and there's some harmony singing. But when you start talking about bluegrass, it tends to turn into much more of a lot of improvisation, a lot of harmony singing, all this influence from Bill Monroe, who is the father of bluegrass and invented it. And his main influences were church singing, so that's the harmony. And there was an African-American guitar player that lived real close to him. And
Arnold
so
Schultz.
the blues, yeah, thank you. The blues is a huge part of his as well. And then he was a mandolin player because his oldest brother got to play guitar. No, his oldest got to play fiddle, and the second oldest got to play guitar, and he was stuck with the mandolin.
That was probably, at that time, it probably wasn't the most.
That was the most fortunate thing that ever happened to the world, was that he got stuck with the mandolin. So he got very interested in combining new elements to form bluegrass. So bluegrass is, the first description in print of bluegrass is it's folk music in overdrive.
Yeah.
And some people stop with that definition and they don't know that there are also beautiful waltzes and there are beautiful dirges and fabulous instrumental numbers that are slow. Mm-hmm. But improvisation and harmony singing are the two big differences between old-timey and bluegrass.
And when you mention that a lot of people think of you as an old-time musician, that kind of rang a bell for me too, because when I think about the different styles of music that I know you from, whether it's gypsy jazz, country swing, a lot of them are like dance-based music. You like people cutting a rug at your shows.
I do, and I wish I could. Kathy wishes I could. Actually, there's a song on the album, and by the way, I've got it's a million seller. I got 1 million in the cellar. So if anybody wants one, get in touch. But there's a song on there that we aren't going to play today that I wrote about dancing with Kathy because I don't know how to dance with Kathy. So yeah,
well, that's why we play music, right?
Exactly.
Is so that we don't have to do that part. We can provide it for others. But that reminds me, folks. Mark is, like I said earlier, he is the quintessential working musician, except for it's time of COVID. So he's the quintessential not working musician. He's stuck at home, like everybody else. He's doing what he can to get out here on live streams and things, but he could really use your support. So if you like what you're hearing, I am going to put a link to his PayPal tip jar in the comments. So definitely feel free to toss a little something in there for Mark and help him buy that next LaPlante instrument. I didn't see a banjo. I don't know if Lloyd makes banjos yet, but I'm sure you could commission something. I got so excited about the music. I don't want to forget. This is very important. One of the other missions that we have here at the Back Catalog Listening Party is to make sure that these musicians are still getting out there, providing another venue for them. So if you like what you hear, please fill up Mark's tip jar. We have a PayPal link in the comments. And and you will when the music is playing live again, you'll have to come out and see one of his dance bands, especially because I think that's really some of my favorite kind of grooves and rhythms in your writing. And this next song, I couldn't believe how danceable it was for an instrumental, and that's when I was like, this sounds more old time than bluegrass. The song is Curly Gray. Do you want to talk a little bit about this one, where it came from? The title is very interesting. I'm curious about that. The title
is interesting, yeah. So it was just this, I don't remember if this came out of a writing day. I think it did. One of the things that I do to help me keep inspired is I'll set up like 7 or 8 different instruments in the space, and I'll pick one up and I have to write a song with it. Pick the next one up, have to write a song. So I pick up the fiddle and this came out, and then the title, well, it came out as an old-timey tune. Yeah. I never intended it to be a let's tear it up and play it super bluegrassy, which for some people has been a little bit of a challenge. Like, kick it off, that's way too fast. It's got to be danceable. So the title actually came, I mentioned this band earlier, the Wisconsin River Bluegrass Boys. We had a bass player in the band for a while named Dave Hager, and he went by Dave Nelson. He went by Hager because he looked like the cartoon Hager with the huge beard, and he used to call me Curly Gray because of Curly Ray Klein, who played with the Stanleys forever.
All right, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So I was honored by his naming it, so I named the tune after that. Thanks, Dave.
All right,
Rest in peace.
Well, here is Curly Gray from Mark Kreitzer. It's got that nice old-timey dance feel to it on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Oh yeah, now that's how you start a weekend off right. I don't know about you, but yeah, my toes were tapping to that one. You guys too out there, and we got a great comment from Chris,
Yeah.
who asks Mark, "What do you think the future is for genres of music you guys are talking about? So much fun to listen to and play." I agree, Chris. Mark,
I do
that's a
too,
great
man.
question. What do you
It
think?
is. I think the future's looking wonderful. There are so many great young players. I don't know if it's everywhere, but around Minnesota, man, you just see so many. Um, I keep giving, younger and younger people coming for lessons, and they just eat it up. Um, I think the only real potential hiccup in the road would be um, that none of these musics get heard by people on the radio or in TV or movies, or so it's got to be like a grassroots thing. You play it for your neighbors, play it for your kids, play it for their friends. Um, but history has shown if it makes it into a movie, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah,
It's the record of the year. You
yeah.
know,
When people hear it, yeah.
yeah, and they never even pushed that album, and it was the record of the year. So, um, yeah, I just think it's such the response from people is so deep and heartfelt, and ties into music that's ancient. If you ever, I got to see the Carolina Chocolate Drops one time in concert, and Rihanna was talking about she was in Africa she was got a grant to go and study music there. And she said at night, got dark, and they built a big fire in the center of the village, and people started bringing out instruments. And somebody brought out this big gourd with a huge neck on it, and 3 or 4 strings, and a wooden bridge. And she, flipped it up, and they started playing. And she said, it sounded like this. It was clawhammer banjo, exactly that, in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of Africa. So the sounds that you're hearing are just kind of universal sounds. So all we need to do is encourage and promote and make sure that people hear.
Yeah, I think folk music in general, it's almost like the for those of you who are familiar with like the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey idea that there's like these myths around the world that we all share. I kind of feel like there's themes and music or themes and rhythms and things in folk music around the world that kind of also are kind of part of our collective unconscious, like that, and it resonates on a level that is really deep. And anyways, Chris, thank you for that question.
Yeah, it was a great one. Thanks.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the future is looking very bright.
Yeah.
So, in the interest of time, I want to see if we can get through the other tunes that we have queued up.
That'd be fun.
This next number that we have off the record is a little more on the darker side.
Where'd that come from?
Ain't it a shame?
Ain't
what
it a shame?
what would you like to say about this tune?
This definitely came from a songwriting day. And I'm not sure how conscious it was, and this is maybe a little presumptuous of me, but it feels to me a lot like a Dylan song. I was listening to a ton of Dylan. In fact, I've written a few. I wrote a clawhammer banjo song after the school massacre up in Red Lake, Minnesota, called Little Willie's Revenge. And I've just been struck with how he can take a song, he can make a song feel like it's super old, but still have some relationship to what's contemporary. And so yeah, this is one of my one of my darker songs, which is saying something for me.
Well, and I think the folk genre is well suited for times like these.
Yeah.
And so when I heard this, I heard it in a little different way in 2020 than I did
Oh
in
yeah.
2011, and maybe you will too. This is Mark Kreitzer on the Back Catalog Listening Party with "Ain't It a Shame."
Black smoke rising, surely is a train. People wander thirsty in the rain. Old woman crying, waiting for her son. He can't come home, he's dying on the run. The whole world's a raging, gone near insane, ain't it a shame? Hound dogs barking, pulling at his line. He's got a running on his mind. Little baby sleeping, how could he know? He's gotta reap just what his mother sowed. The whole world's a raging, gone near insane, ain't it a shame? Calm storm blowing, the prairie burns. We got to roll, but the wheels won't turn. There's no use praying, there's no one there to hear. God won't be back for another year. The whole world's a raging, gone near insane, ain't it a shame? My God, look at what we've done. We've choked the sky and hid the sun. Black smoke rising, temperature too. There's hope for me, but none for you. The whole world's a raging, gone near insane, ain't it a shame? The whole world's raging, gone near insane, ain't it a shame?
Ooh, yeah. That's Mark Kreitzer, "Ain't It a Shame" on the Back Catalog Listening Party. And maybe a little too timely. Always, why does this song always resonate?
I don't know. I don't know.
But there's something very cathartic about that, because it's this kind of, again, something we share, and we share in that, in the pleasure and the pain. And music is a unique kind of vehicle for that. And that's one of my favorites of yours.
Thank you.
And really hits home. But before we leave today, I would love to try to squeeze in one more slightly more uplifting song. I mean, it might still be about heartbreak, but at least the world's not burning down.
It's happy heartbreak.
And I just want to little shout out to Ann. Thank you. Incredible instrumental breaks
true.
in that one. And one of those instrumental breaks is from our buddy Tom.
Yay, Tom!
Hey,
Hey,
Tom.
Tom.
It's great to see you here. This is so much fun having all of you here. And somebody who chimed in earlier, speaking of just a few degrees separation from the show, was our good friend Becky Schlegel, who was on
Becky.
episode number 4. For those diehard fans, you'll remember Becky's episode, one of our all-time favorites. She's a wonderful songwriter. And the last song we're going to listen to today features Becky on vocals. And do you want to talk a little bit about that collaboration?
I would love to. I've had the great pleasure of working with Becky a few times. Not Betty, Becky. And I played bass with her band and played some guitar with her band. And we were sitting one time at Delano's Pizza in Minneapolis, which used to be the longest running bluegrass venue on the planet, and talking about songwriting. And somehow the lyrics came up, and she wrote them down. And she actually has recorded this song not once but twice.
Whoa.
I know. And so when we recorded it, I thought, well, we have to have Becky sing harmony on it. There's just no question. And this is a great one because the inspiration for this song, I was in southern France, and there was a huge theater festival in Avignon. And around Avignon, there was the Off Festival. And the way they would get people to come to their shows is they would leave flyers on all the restaurant and bar tables all over town. And there was a flyer which I desperately wanted to find for you folks, but I couldn't. And in French, it said, "Si tu me quittes, est-ce que je peux venir aussi?" Which means, if you leave me, can I come along too?
Oh, nice.
But it didn't work so well with the meter, so I changed it slightly. But thank you, whoever wrote that play. I really appreciate it.
Oh, that's awesome. Multilingual. Kreitzer here. Hey, look who just popped in. It's Ellen Stanley, everybody. Everybody say hello to Ellen. Ellen, aren't you on vacation?
You didn't have to leave town. You could have just stayed home. It was fine.
We all miss you very much today. And like I said earlier, she has a message for our patrons if you stick around after this tune. But I want to hear this one again. This is a beautiful, beautiful song. I know why Becky recorded it twice. And it's one of my all-time favorites. I got to play a little snare drum, which always makes me happy. And I've really grown to love this kind of country vibe. And this song's got it in space. This is "If You Leave Me" from Mark Kreitzer on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
If you leave me, would you take me along? I keep hoping I'm reading you wrong. But if the worst is true, and I'm losing you, if you leave me, would you take me along? I can see you've been thinking of leaving. You look right through me more and more. If it's true, would you do me a favor as you walk through the door? If you leave me, would you take me along? I keep hoping I'm reading you wrong. But if the worst is true, and I'm losing you, if you leave me, would you take me along? desperately want you to. As you make up your mind, please remember I'll always be true to you. If you leave me, would you take me along? I keep hoping I'm reading you wrong. But if the worst is true, and I'm losing you, if you leave me, would you take me along?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Tell you, three chords and the truth.
3 chords in the truth, absolutely. And Becky herself chimed in and said one of the greatest songs of all time. I agree. This has got to be one of my all-time favorite songs. It's just that one. It moves me in that way that only music can. And Mark Kreitzer, I thank you so much for spending this hour with us and sharing your talents, sharing your music. Folks, Mark is one of the most treasured musicians we have here in the Twin Cities and anywhere. And like I said earlier, he is not gigging. He can't do what he does because of this pandemic. Musicians, like everybody in the service industry right now, we're really, really hurting. So please throw a little something in Mark's tip jar. I'm scrolling it across the screen. It's also in the comments. And every little bit helps, and we want 10 more songs just like that, Mark. So we want to promote you. And Ann says love it, and Bruce, we agree. Yeah, that's and for all of you who tuned in today, thank you so much. As I teased in the beginning of the show, Ellen couldn't be here in person today because she is taking a well-earned vacation with her family. But we recently launched a Patreon. Speaking of supporting the arts, our job is to get these artists in front of you. And by starting a Patreon, hopefully we can get more artists out in front of you and more money in their pockets. And that's our mission, as well as just bringing a community together. What we share here every week means so much to me. It means so much to Ellen, and it really is getting me through this pandemic. And it doesn't look like things are going to change much in the next 6 to 8 months. So I'm just so happy and so grateful that we can meet here every week. And so Ellen recorded a little message to our new patrons. We just started a Patreon. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically a way for people to support something like this by a recurring donation, basically, to keep it going. And we'll play Ellen's bit here, and we'll be right back.
Hi everybody, Mother Banjo here, and I'm sorry I couldn't be with you live today, as I am pretty much every other Friday, but big thanks to Tony for manning the show in my absence. And I just wanted to send a little message to all of you to thank you to all the Patreon supporters, all the folks who stepped up to support our new Patreon campaign and help grow the show. In particular, I want to thank Alan from Texas, Vaughn, Connie, Bevan and Alinda from Connecticut, Anne, Penny. All of you are what is going to keep this show going and continue to help grow it. And if you want to join these fine folks and support the show and help us expand our reach and be on more platforms and get cool thank you gifts like these fine folks are going to find out who next week's guest is before all of you. There's also going to be after parties, other cool exclusive things if you support it. So check out the link on the Back Catalog Listening Party Facebook and YouTube pages. And thank you so much, and I'll see you next Friday at 4. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Ellen. Hopefully she's back on the road. And one of the things we want to do for patrons, too, is to have like performances. And I talked to Mark before the show to ask if he would ever be willing to do one. And he said yes. If you would love like a personal concert from Mark or from somebody else, this is the kind of thing that we can offer to the patrons as a thank you and after party. So anyway, so thank you. I do want to mention that we had one person come in after she recorded that, and that is our friend Chris. I believe I see him every week. Chris, thank you so much for. I wanted to make sure I acknowledge you. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast or the vodcast or whatever you call this thing. We really appreciate it. And once again, I want to extend my thank you to Mr. Mark Kreitzer, for joining us today and sharing his talents. Mark, why don't you tell people where they can find out more about you and your music?
Well, markkreitzer.com is a good place to go. And a band that I do most of my playing with these days, if we get to play, is Patty and the Buttons. You can certainly look up Patty and the Buttons both on Facebook and just everywhere online. Patrick is great about putting stuff up. And we're still in the process of trying to figure out where we can play safely. A couple of us in particular are of a certain age that we shouldn't be out in public, especially when there are people out not wearing masks. I mean, to paraphrase Dr. Fauci, I can't teach you how to care for other people. So please put on a mask if you're out in public, if you're sharing space. There are a lot of us who are at risk just because of our age or because of our condition or because of our blood type. So Patty and the Buttons, anywhere you can find us, that's where I'm mostly playing these days. I have been playing some in Northfield. I'm going to be at the Armory in Northfield in about a week and a half.
Oh, fantastic.
And then again in a couple weeks. And Tony and Ellen, oh my God, what a service you are providing.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. If you haven't somehow figured out how to give them money, do it.
Well, thank you. There'll be a link to our Patreon in the show comments. We do appreciate that. And, Mark's got a deep collection, so I look forward to revisiting another album in the future. Thanks again for all of you for tuning in to the Back Catalog Listening Party. This was another very special week. I'm already feeling better. I can't, my weekend can now officially begin thanks to all of you for showing up. And thanks to you, Mr. Mark Kreitzer, for all that you do for us with your music. And until next week, I need to come up with a catchphrase. All right, folks, I'm looking for one. Until next week, blank.
Dude.
Yeah. That's one of those things where I listen to enough podcasts and stuff that I think, well, I probably have one in my pocket.
Keep on duding.
I absolutely don't. So if you have any suggestions for kind of the catchphrase at the end of the show, please let me know. And I can't wait to see you next week on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Take care.